name is Seth. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of Creditinfo Solutions. I've been here a little under 2 years now. I'm American, been living in Prague now for 11 years. Prior to joining Creditinfo, I was mainly involved in private equity here in Prague and Eastern Europe, mainly with a focus on real estate investment. But I started my career in banking with Wells Fargo, which is, I think, now the second or third largest bank in the U.S. I have an undergraduate degree in international business and an MBA from the University of Pittsburgh with a focus in finance. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me. I was asked to do this presentation on networking, which is, I think, a tough subject to make a somewhat organized, systematic presentation, because it is quite it's not a science, it's more of an art. But I think it's something that none of us is perfect at. None of us will probably ever be perfect at, but the word work is in network, and it does take hard work. And I think we can think about how we go about it as well in order to be as effective as possible. And kind of thinking about how I would do this, I think networking, a lot of people think about networking as, you know, after work party with people from your industry, getting drunk and, you know, kind of shooting the shit, so to speak. But I think, and I mean, that is certainly one element to it, but I think networking is a much more complicated concept. So I've tried to think about how we can present it in a way that makes it a little bit more sophisticated than boozing after work with people in your industry. So I think the way I'll try to present this, the way I've thought about it, is sort of how can we use networking, and how is networking important in the context of management and leadership and people being managers and leaders. So that's how I'll approach it. Mute, please. Mute, please. If anyone, I think, again, because this is, you know, personally, I've never done a formal presentation on networking before, so it's certainly just my ideas. It's nothing right or wrong, black and white. So I think I welcome comments and discussion if people would like to jump in and have a chat. We'll start off. I've tried to create what I've sort of thought a good definition of networking is, and I say that it's creating a fabric of personal contacts who will provide support, feedback, insight, mute, resources, and information. I think it's a pretty robust definition. Again, other people may have a different definition, but I think that's pretty comprehensive and hits at what I will try to present today. And in starting off, I think that networking, it seems simple, but I think that for many people when they start out their careers, especially at lower junior levels, kind of the concept sometimes is a bit intimidating to go to a conference and meet people, high-level people, or to go and start conversations that maybe are not natural, at least for the junior person. Why is this? I think that any networking involves relational tasks, and I write not analytical tasks. And I think what I mean by that is that as we progress in our careers and we sort of move up, we probably progress, and many times in companies people progress because of certain functional skills. So you're a good accountant, or you're a good finance person, or you're a good developer. And networking, so to speak, with all types of different stakeholders is not something that got you promoted or has progressed in your career. So it's a new skill that needs to be acquired. Next, I think that failure to realize that interaction with diverse potential stakeholders is not a distraction from real work. So sometimes as we progress, again, networking takes time. And while I'm trying to network, I say to myself, well, I could be writing this email, or I could be working on this Excel spreadsheet. And I think sometimes early in one's career, that is perceived as being more important, whereas, again, as I'll try to show today, that actually networking will help you do those operational tasks in a better way or a more efficient way. I think also many people, and I think this is also true of many of our colleagues here at Creditinfo, that the mindset of networking is that it's schmoozing, or if I want to be more frank, kissing ass, or insincere or manipulative. And it doesn't have to be, and it shouldn't be. And if it, I think, is going to be effective, it probably will not be. And again, as we go through this, I'll try to show why. Again, these are some thoughts, some ideas from me, having thought about it, having, let's say, done it. But if anyone begs to differ or has a different opinion, I think I welcome it, and hopefully the other participants will as well. So please, chime in if anyone has a comment. So I guess what I would try to do today is I've sort of divided networking into three types of networking, each one sort of its own distinct form, but at the end of the day, it forms a sort of triangle that to be really successful, you need all three as part of any networking strategy if we want to give it some official name. So the first one I start with is operational. What do I mean by operational? Literally meaning to ensure coordination and cooperation among people who must know and trust each other in order to accomplish immediate tasks. I think this is the one that's probably most familiar to all of us. And I write here, either one is necessary to the task or not. So in our day-to-day working lives, professional lives, we all have tasks, and usually we need someone else to help us accomplish that task. And in this sort of networking strategy, either someone is necessary to us to help us accomplish that task or not. And what comprises this network, a lot of times it's very internal, so we're talking about direct reports, superiors, peers, but also I think it's very important to remember key outside stakeholders. Some of those can what I'm referring to are suppliers, distributors, customers themselves, regulators, and similar. So these are all internal and external stakeholders that in order to accomplish these daily tasks, each one of us needs. And in its own way, this is some component of networking. As I said before, I think this type of networking is the most natural to all of us, mostly to let's say beginning managers early in their careers. But there are some downfalls or some blind spots as I write. And I think one of the big ones is, and I've made reference to it earlier, is that a lot of times young managers, young leaders, when they are put in that situation, they tend to fall back on what I call functional credentials, meaning, for the last 5 years I was an accountant, so now when I get to a position of more of a broader management or leadership, I sort of revert back to that because that's what I know. One sort of anecdote, I heard a story once of a guy, and he was recently promoted. He was the youngest member of the board, and the owner mentioned to him that he thought that the company, he should maybe take the company public, meaning listed on a stock exchange and where investors could buy and sell shares. And so, you know, being keen in the position and coming from an accounting background, he went about completely reorganizing the accounting department so that in 6 months or 12 months, when the company was going public and auditors and the Securities and Exchange Commission were going to really do an audit of the books, the accounting would be perfect. But 6 months down the road, basically 6 of the 7 board members were completely against taking the company public. So this newly promoted manager and board member spent 6 months of his, you know, management career basically for nothing, when his energy could have been spent getting more feedback from his other co-directors instead of doing something where he didn't have the input from all these stakeholders. So I think it's just one example of, you know, a guy who instead of branching out, he fell back on what he felt comfortable with, and in the end, it didn't work out. Another thing, I think, another blind spot or downfall is that when we're so busy in the operational tasks, we forget to ask the question, not what are we doing, but what should we be doing. So we're so involved, you know, doing what someone tells us, and sometimes fail to step back and say, what should I be doing? So essentially, we're trying to meet these assigned objectives, but not necessarily the strategic ones that maybe we should be. Was my point? Yeah, and I guess at the end of the day, I think that the quality of relationships, there must be a rapport, there must be mutual trust, and that's really what will give your operational network its power. So in your day-to-day work, if there's mutual trust, then sort of this part of strategy should be pretty solid. Any questions? Any thoughts?
I'd just like to comment, Seth. I just really think that's a really good point. I think quite often people think networking's external, and it's all about the sales and, you know, all suppliers. So I think that's really key, especially to our organisation, where, you know, trust, like you say, it's one of our core values. So I think that's a really good point to make.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think, I mean, obviously we need that mutual trust amongst ourselves to have your internal stakeholders, your internal network, but also to build these relationships, not only to accomplish the tasks that are immediate, but also the tasks, and this I think kind of gradually gets us into more strategic, but the tasks that will come, but you can't foresee them at the moment. So not to forget about the unforeseen task that will inevitably come. Moving on. Personal networking. That's the second part of strategy, and really this is less of an internal focus and more of an external focus. The purpose is really to gain new perspectives that allow each of us to advance in our careers. So whereas the operational networking is very narrow focused, again, all about the immediate task at hand, this is about allowing young managers, young leaders to see new perspectives, to gain new insights from external stakeholders, maybe outside of their industry, you know, even outside of the professional environment, that at the end of the day will give them broader perspective to then help make those operational decisions, those operational tasks better. Um, Paul's looking around. I think he has a comment. No. I thought I'd taken that one. Oh, okay. And I think also, again, I go back to this functional expertise. A lot of this personal networking allows the accountant, let's say, who's newly promoted into a position of management or leadership, to gain some professional knowledge outside of that professional expertise. So I've been an accountant for the last 6 years. That's why that allowed me, my success there allowed me to advance. But now, in order to succeed as I continue to progress in my career, I need new knowledge, knowledge from other professional domains to allow me to have a broader perspective that I've not been able to experience until now. Ways to do this, I think joining professional associations. For me personally, say as an American in the U.S., alumni associations. So, you know, the university or the school that you graduated from, to network back into that organization of people that you know, you studied with, who have gone on as well to make careers in different industries, to connect back to them. Clubs and other personal interest activities. I mean, I think that we shouldn't forget that we can use our personal interest also to advance ourselves professionally. So, you know, if you like it, I think people of like mind, you will help each other. So through a cycling club, you can meet people who can help you advance professionally. I think this is a double slide, no, Em? Or?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I think I just didn't delete. Yeah, and a common mistake, again, with personal, I'm saying it again, is that people ask themselves, you know, why should I spend the time on this activity that's, you know, very much indirectly related to my work, to my task, what I need to do today, tomorrow. And I think that it can't be overstated that, you know, these personal contacts will provide referrals, information, development, and support that otherwise we don't have. You know, we go from home to work, we see the same colleagues, and so there's other information that can be valuable to us in our jobs. And without developing this personal network, we become very narrow-minded, and, you know, homework. I think also, and speaking of referrals, there's the view of the principle of 6 degrees of separation, that, you know, our personal contacts are only valuable to the extent that they help us reach, in as few connections as possible, a far-off person who has information that we need. So when we speak about referrals, you know, through the least amount of context as possible, to reach someone who we would certainly not otherwise reach, who has information that can be valuable to us. And I think through personal networking, just from a selfish personal standpoint, personal development, you know, one can find mentors, coaches that can help you develop other aspects of yourself, both personally and professionally. I think that's probably it on personal. Any other comments? Only Paul and Emma? Okay. I'll move on, and I'd like to get some participation now because I have a question. I come to the third part, and I call it strategic networking, and this is really the kind of the end of the chain, where we move from functional managers, so the leader of, you know, a service desk leader or any leader of a specific department, to, you know, a leader on a grander scale. And here I mean that to connect the leader into a set of relationships and information sources to provide a platform to achieve organizational or personal goals. So before, again, it was a more narrow focus. Now we're getting into seeing the business as a whole and seeing the broad strategic issues. I'm talking here about lateral and vertical relationships with other functional and business unit managers. So really spreading yourself out across the entire, from speaking from a company standpoint, across the company, people outside of your immediate control or your immediate environment, and really figuring out how do all those different people who are out of your control, out of your day-to-day operational environment, how do they contribute to the big picture of what you're trying to achieve strategically? Yes, Paul?
My question is, how do you get, you might be interested in talking to them.
Can you guys hear? Em, can you hear Paul?
Yes.
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, my question is, you might be interested in talking to them and making a relationship with them, but how do you get them to make a relationship with you?
Yeah.
They may think you're some nerd who they'd never be interested in.
Yeah. Does someone else want to answer that?
Is that your experience, Paul?
Way to turn it back on it. I actually have a slide to that if no one else has a response. But I think, yeah, it's not an easy question. Maybe I'll move to that one. But I think a lot of us go to conferences and, you know, we see someone, maybe the chair of the conference, that's important, high level, and we'd like to get to know them. We come across them and we say, hey, great conference, you know, it's great what your company is doing. Next time you're in Prague, let's meet up. And I would put money on it that guy never calls me back in that. And probably a lot of you can connect to that you don't get a call. They don't come to Prague, or even if they do, they don't call you. And I think the reason why is because high-level people are busy, and we really have to give them a reason and inspire them to meet with us. I have an example. Maybe I'll come to that in a second. Does anyone have a good definition, or can anyone give their opinion on what's the difference between a leader and a manager?
I'd say a manager goes through the motions and a leader motivates or tries to drive the team forward, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Good. Anyone else? I mean, no right or wrong answer. I was just curious before I proposed what I was going to say in the context of what we're discussing.
We have a comment on the screen as well from Sana. A leader may not... Oh, we've got half a comment. Sorry, if you want to finish it off or we can read it out. Oh, right. A leader may not be the manager.
Mm-hmm. Well,
in the chat box you can see comments.
I don't see.
Thank you, Sana.
Okay. I don't see the comment.
Yeah, neither do I.
Oh, sorry, it's been sent privately. Sorry, Sana. But a leader may not be the manager. I think that's very true.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what I was going to propose and my thoughts, and especially in this context, is that a leader has the ability and must possess the ability to figure out where to go and to enlist the people and the stakeholders and the groups necessary to get there. So who is that? To recruit stakeholders, to line up allies in his court, so to speak, kind of to analyze the political landscape of what we're doing, and also to broker or mediate conversations between parties, or, as I mentioned before, functional divisions of a company that perhaps are unconnected, and all with the goal of creating some mutual influence together. Okay. Oh, there was another comment. One of the caveats that I'd like to propose, and I think that we're all guilty, myself included, but I think we should be careful not to do it, is that oftentimes we sort of dismiss such strategic networking, per se, for being too political, and we don't want to play these political games, and it's a question of personal values or integrity. But I think that that's not always the case, and I think that sometimes dismissing it too quickly for political can have really negative consequences for the organization and for people individually. Sort of in doing this, I read about some manager who was the business unit director of a large company, and there was some sort of dysfunctional leadership within her organization, and some people who, let's say, were against her started to take over some key functions, and when she was asked, and she didn't do anything, and she refused to line up some other stakeholders, to recruit some allies from other parts of the company, to help her. And when she was asked, why didn't she use her network to stop it, she replied that she didn't want to play stupid political games. The result was that in the end she lost a lot of respect and support from many of her direct reports and co-workers, because they felt that she didn't have the strength or was unwilling to defend her position, and at the end of the day their position. So she quickly just dismissed it for political games, but in the end it backfired on her personally, and she lost some respect from her direct reports. Again, I come back to the fact that this type of strategic networking takes time and energy, and one can easily just say, I don't have the time or energy, or I don't want to do it. But I think, again, that can backfire, because this strategic network, which is the most important, can actually come to your defense, come to your, to assist you exactly when you need it, when there's a crisis, when your business unit is in trouble. Having this strategic network can actually come to your rescue when you really need it. So to finish up, I just thought four mistakes to avoid when networking. Obviously, there's more, and you have more, but kind of four that came to mind as I was doing this. I give the case that I've just mentioned, where you meet someone, say, let's catch up next time you're in Prague, you never see them again. First mistake, otherwise, is misunderstanding the pecking order. What I mean by that is networking is different depending on if it's your peer or someone sort of your status, let's say, than it is with someone above you in status, in quotations. So basically, we all know people that are on our level or have the same interest as us, networking is a little bit more simple. You follow up, you connect with them on LinkedIn, you invite them for a coffee or for lunch, and you trade ideas and experience, because at the end of the day, you have those similarities. They want to share and you want to share them. Those rules don't necessarily work with people who are above you in status, and I think this is kind of what Paul was referring to. Which brings me to the next one. Ask to receive before you give. That's a mistake. It should be the other way. What? That was funny for some reason. Don't know. So asking to receive before you give, I say, is a mistake. We should be, or you should be, offering the person that you want to network with a benefit up front. The example that I put here is Google Hangout. I read there was a pretty popular social media consultant, I think it was in Canada, who wanted to build relationships with well-known business celebrities, also who've written a lot. I put Guy Kawasaki, who's famous with Apple and most recently, I think, Google and Motorola. So he invited them to be interviewed, or she invited them to be interviewed for her Google Plus Hangouts focused on how to become a business author. So by doing this, she exposed them to a broader audience and also created, content that is permanently online. So there was an immediate benefit to these sort of high status individuals. Mistake number 3, failing to state your value proposition. Important high-level people don't have a lot of time, for you, so we need to be explicit and quick about what is our benefit, how can we help. So I think we did this a while back in CIS. I think we talked about it in Frankfurt recently. We should all have a 30-second value proposition pitch. So if you get 30 seconds in an elevator with a high-level person that you want to network with, what is your pitch? So, maybe for some of you, it's something to walk away today and say, what is my 30-second pitch going to be? And my last slide, mistake number 4, avoid de-energizers, what I say. Research, this is from Harvard Business School, shows that 90% of work stress, work anxiety is caused by 5% of one's network, usually the operational network that I spoke about of internal stakeholders. So these people simply sap your energy, avoid them. Surround yourself by the opposite, call them energizers. What type of people are these? People who, they're not necessarily charismatic, or charisma doesn't necessarily have anything to do with it, but I say that these people are the ones that see opportunities, even in the challenges, the difficult times. They create room, space for other people to contribute meaningfully to what you're trying to achieve. They're trustworthy and committed to principles that are larger than their own interest, their own self-interest. So I think, if anything, when you think about your network, think about this. It's probably a good place to start. So I think that wraps up the presentation. If anyone has any concluding points, comments, critiques.
I'd like to say thank you, first of all, Seth. We do have a comment from somebody named The Creator that's online. What is your 30 seconds pitch? is that something that you'd be able to share with us? Maybe even if it's sent out by email? If you... I'm not sure.
That's my
good question. Who the hell is the creator?
Who is the creator?
Yeah. Do you know?
No,
okay.
I'm afraid I don't know who the
sorry,
creator is.
Seth, your 30 seconds.
It's not prepared.
Is this something you said it was an exercise?
What's your 30-second pitch?
Me?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it depends on who it is, what you want to sell, and I have sympathy with what you say when you say you're not prepared, because you have to prepare for each event, each time.
Yeah.
Whom are you meeting? Who will be there? What should be the objectives? You ask your colleagues who knows these guys or their colleagues. Where does our relationship with them stand, and so on? So it varies a lot.
I think I failed to say that. I think it's a good point, and I failed to say it when I was speaking about the example of the conference. But I think that's exactly right, that the pitch will always, or should always be tailored to what you're doing. So if you're going to a credit bureau conference, or you're going to a conference on IT quality assurance, or in your personal network you're going to a club meeting, your pitch should probably be, or should be, tailored to what the audience is at that particular environment. But I think as a concept, all of us should think about that and be aware of it, so that when we're putting ourselves in those situations, we do have a 30-second pitch that we're confident in. Yeah. Any other comments?
What do you think you could do if you lack confidence? I think I mean, there's certain people that are not scared of talking and that like to talk. Yeah. But I think there's an awful lot of people, even in like sales positions or positions that you'd think they'd be good at talking, but they lack confidence. What do you think you can do if that is the case? How can you become a better networker?
Yeah, I think one easy way to start is that there's a lot of different, I mean, if we speak about this external personal networking, there's so many different environments or events, etc., that we can attend, and they're all different. So I think for the sort of introverted networker, maybe these sort of after work drinks before home type events, where kind of the goal is to drink beer, get drunk, and flirt with other people in the industry or whatever. That's probably not the right platform or the right environment for the introverted networker. But maybe something where it's a chamber of commerce lunch round table that's limited to sort of 8 people of kind of similar positions but different industries to talk about a certain initiative. I think that probably for the introverted networker, it's still equally important, just a different environment. And the more that they attend and participate in events like that, I think that they will gain confidence to then branch out to other type of events where maybe it's a larger crowd that they don't feel comfortable with. That's just one thought.
In saying that, sorry, Paul, go on.
One other option that I saw work quite well was actually can be for some of the senior managers to take initiative, because it gives people, I guess, a way of, perhaps a day with the boss. I've seen work quite well where perhaps just tracking the boss for a day, whoever that may be, allows them to in a comfort zone, meet different people of different levels. So particularly a lot of the nervousness comes when you're talking with more senior people. So perhaps the younger people spend a day with the boss, they'll actually see that those people are quite normal, etc.
One other thing that I think, and I've seen that I think works quite well for, like you said, maybe someone that's in a new business development role, but networking is not natural to them, or they don't feel comfortable, is, we all have personal interests, and I mentioned that if we can bridge, personal and professional, I think it always works. And this person that I saw, she was very interested in theater. So what she did was, like once a quarter, she organized a theater night, and she invited people that she wanted to network with, mostly some internal stakeholders, but mostly external stakeholders, that she was reluctant or nervous to approach in a different environment, but she organized these theater nights where she invited a select group of people she wanted to network with to join her in an environment in which she was comfortable. And obviously then through this personal interest, they developed some rapport and some trust, and she used that to advance herself sort of in her professional initiative. So I think that's something that we can think about, or if someone's not comfortable, to think about taking a proactive approach to create the environment in which you're comfortable. Javor has a comment.
Yeah, because what Paul said about this day with the boss, I just want to give one example which might help the colleagues. For instance, in Prague, in the IT, we have guys who need to present, but sometimes IT attracts people who are not that good in presentation skills. And Paul was very kind, and we had already 2 sessions. One session, these guys simply presented, and Paul played the governor of some bank, and they had to go there and make a 10-minute presentation. And then second session, we just went for lunch, and he gave them very direct and honest feedback. And I think if you have access to people like Paul around you who would be willing to share their experience with guys in your organization who need to open up a little bit, I think it could be quite a nice thing, like half an hour presentation or lunch with feedback, and it can be a good thing.
Yeah, I've got a question. How does anybody in the audience, not just Seth, feel about professional organisations that organise networking sessions? Do you think they're useful or not? I'm thinking like BNI and things like that.
What does that acronym stand for, Emma?
Good question. I'll Google it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
we were shaking our heads as well.
I know it's an international business networking something, but it is a professional organisation, and I know there's a few different ones around, but I think that's a worldwide one. And they have chapters, as they call it, and you can go along and meet with people from the local area, and the purpose of it is that everybody in the network has to refer someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wondered, Business Network International, there we go.
Yeah. I mean, if no one else wants to comment, I have a comment or experience from Prague. I think you never know until you try it. So, my opinion is, from experience, is that many of these types of organizations or associations are, at the end of the day, a waste of time. But I think it's worth trying to make sure that you don't just dismiss it just because of the name or whatever. And sort of, I can say that, for example, I go to a number of Canadian Chamber of Commerce meetings in the Czech Republic, and I find it very worthwhile because there are people there of all ages, a very diversified group representing all industries. They do a lot of workshops around different initiatives that brings together even more diverse crowd. So for me, that works. I've tried another group that is formed in Prague a couple of years ago where they do it once a week at 7 o'clock in the morning. And basically what you do is everyone that comes, basically they have like a 60-second pitch, and you say, you ask what the group can do for you, and when you finish that, you tell the group what you can do for them. I think it's a fantastic concept because it kind of, no one's beating around the bush, everyone's getting to the point. So I was pretty kind of excited about it. But in the end, I think it's also about what types of people are there, and here it was more, I need a cool satellite that gets television stations, from Iceland, and so for my professional networking, it really didn't bring any added value. But I think the concept was fantastic.
We've had a comment in the chat box. Lana from Creditinfo Malta has been to BNI's, and she's mentioned that yes, they are beneficial because you can find out who's in your network, who's there, and you get used to those people there, and therefore you become more confident. Like you said, it's that practice. You become more confident in finding connections. So again, the concept works. Do we have any more questions? You could type them in the chat box if you like, if you don't have microphones.
If I may briefly comment, most important thing about networking, in addition to what Seth said, or to underline what he said, believe in what you are doing, and then what the team is doing, the company is doing. You would not be in a position to network unless you are good at what you're doing. Because we are that kind of company, we would not allow it. You have to have confidence in yourself to be able to, let the people you're networking with have a good feeling about what you do. So just don't forget how good things, in how good team you are, and how good yourself are. You don't need to be nervous as anyone. Just be polite, then things will be fine.
Thank you, Seth. Really appreciated your presentation today.
Thanks, Tim. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Seth.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.